if approved, they would be required to buffer themselves from other zoning classifications of residential. But the SR1's not required, the R1A is not required, and the OSR1's not required to buffer themselves from other. So if the applicant's wanting to put forth a conservation easement that talks about minimum expectations for through time, and whether it's gonna be a homeowners association that's gonna maintain, or individual property owners, and it's something that we can, if that's what's put forth, it's not a PUD, but we would put forth the idea that if we're doing this, this is our expectation for when we come through for a concept plan. It's, I'm not sure, my law director probably give me a better standing if I can truly hold him to things that he's making as comments outside of a PUD. And it's easier to do it within the PUD because it's then all reviewable. It becomes statements now that this is what I want it to be as opposed to what I can require.
So it becomes like any other private agreement, easement agreement, whoever is the benefit, has the benefit of the easement, has the right to enforce it, just like any other private easement.
So we would probably propose that it would be a deed restriction on the deeds that
A way to do
were,
it
the
too.
transfers that took place, that,
Yeah, that's much easier.
that would be something that then everyone would be aware of when they bought the lot,
Very good.
that they would have that requirement to keep that conservation area.
Very good.
Is- is- Sir, if I could, is that something you also wanted to have along existing properties, or just along the southern boundary? Since there was mention of some lots that are in existence today that you're abutting.
Yeah, so I would show it here, that, you know, this is the Memory Gardens, this is the cemetery. And then this property line right here abuts Cypress Ridge. And then you get over into what is owned by Farm Ground again, Turner. Oh, okay, anyway, Joe Turner owns that property. And so these I anticipate would develop, you know, residentially similar to this in the future, so.
But what about the properties that touch Lidle 5 Points that are east and west of your request?
Is there any natural woodlands in there now? It's just open?
Property owners can further discuss.
Yeah, there's a couple of smaller parcels right here that, if they're gonna stay single family like that, we could do that as well. The other one, it gets larger, it's over 6 acres. Odds are that it will probably, you know, I don't know, but I would say the two smaller parcels, probably we could create a buffer there as well.
Okay.
And there naturally will be a buffer along Lidle 5 Points. There's right-of-way dedication all the way along there, so.
Okay, I think we should,
One more comment?
yes, sir, come on up.
Right, I hate to be a pain here, but I'm so good at it. When we asked for a buffer, I heard 20 feet mentioned. That's from that wall to that third row. That's not a buffer. I'm talking about 100, 200 feet, something like that. And making it a kind of a wildlife reserve or something with some trees and some hills, so that we don't have to look at the back of other houses and get some noise barriers and so forth, okay? Not 20 feet, that doesn't do it for us.
How far is your house, from your back property
I
line?
would say it's probably 35 feet, maybe 30 feet, something like that, 30.
Yeah, that's an issue too. When you
It
bought a
is.
house that was 35 feet from the property line, you had to know it was gonna develop behind you.
No, I didn't, because I'm
It's a
sorry,
field.
I didn't, I was
It's
told that that
Clearcreek
was
Township
the,
and it's a field.
I was told that that was the part of the cemetery.
Who told you that?
And, I'm sorry?
Did your realtor tell you that?
Yes, he did.
I'd say you have a problem with your realtor.
I probably do.
Well, there's not going to be a development in Clearcreek Township, in my opinion, where you're gonna have a 200-foot buffer between the houses. I mean, that's just not fair to any developer or landowner. If a landowner was going to your neighbor, if it was a single-family residence back there, and he owned one lot, you can't expect him to stay 165 feet off the back of his property line, and that's just not a reasonable request.
No, I understand.
As long as, as far as we could get it, is a great idea, I appreciate it.
Okay, that's all I'm asking you to do, is just for some consideration for a buffer with some type of trees or
Yeah,
something
best,
like that.
as best as can be done. I think a buffer's, as I mentioned to start with, is, that's one advantage of the PUD. However, the PUD is so long and drawn out, and it's drudgery for both sides, for township trustees, our staff, and for the builder. It's a tough thing to go through, it's a pain in the butt.
Okay.
But I think we can try to identify, I think, well, I'm gonna ask this question, Jeff, can we identify specific lots? And is this what they're proposing, your final layout for this at this point, Dave? Is this your, hey David, is this your final proposed layout? Is this it? Because what I would recommend, if we're gonna have buffers in areas, I wanna point out the lots and identify the lots that are gonna have the deed restrictions, covenants in the deeds, that this lot has to have this lot has to have that. Is that
It would
a
be
reasonable
difficult
thing?
for me to say that. It has been laid out, and we did do some engineering look at it, but we have to verify at this point. So I'd rather deal with property lines rather than
Okay.
the overall property lines rather than.
We can call out those property lines.
And I see a problem for you, even if they're, acre and a half lots.
Yeah.
Why not?
There's the setback.
Even as it's zoned
What's the
now.
setback on a zone now?
Well, the setback for his zoning classification is a 40-foot rear, the zoning classification for TR1 is a 40-foot rear,
Yeah.
so.
So it's gonna be at least
Yeah, the way it's zoned now would be.
80 feet
Yeah,
outdoors.
Yeah.
for the single-family home, you're able to put the accessory structure 10 foot off on the rear for both of those classifications.
But if we deed restrict it, that keeps everything. That's
Just since this is concept, and as I talked about before, they're not required to even provide the concept. So they have to go through, Warren County Regional Planning, a true concept review. That may change some locations based upon soil and waters review, health department review and the like. So if we're concerned about location, probably to put it along the southern boundary, which I think was easily to define, and maybe then identify the adjoining property owners that they're wanting to have a buffer against, so that no matter what configuration occurs, we know that this is a depth or an X feet depth from Lidle 5 points on the eastern and western side, something like that. So that staff knows at some point, yes, we've made it, or no, we've not made it for those
Okay, so
expectations.
just be able to identify the property owners.
Because if it's gonna be deed restricted, then that's one way they can say, okay, it's a here, there type of thing
Mhm.
to play with.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate you taking,
Yeah,
listening
sure.
to my
Thank you.
concern.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Excuse me. My name's Brian Michael, and I moved down here about 4 years ago. So I came down from Montgomery County. So,
Can you state your address?
I am
please, for the
sorry,
record?
I'm getting ahead of myself, yes. I live at 2864 Station House Way, so I actually live in one of Dave and Sherry's communities. It's a great community, they did a very nice job. You guys are all familiar with it, so I don't have to sing the praises of it. I moved down here about 4 years ago, like I mentioned, from Montgomery County, specifically Miami Township. And I was, just in full disclosure, I was very involved up there with the government. I was the ward of the Republican Party for 10 years, so. But the schools weren't there, and so I was very involved with it. I knew what was going on in the township, so I wasn't just a normal resident. You guys have done an amazing job in comparison to the neighbors to the north in this township, as far as the responsible growth and property values climbing and managing the traffic that ensues. I lived off Austin, so that was a mess. So when I was looking for a place to live, 3 things really were important to me. It was responsible government, having good schools for my kids, and then also, I like the rural feel here. You guys have done a great job of sticking to that plan, maintaining that rural feel, while still giving the modern convenience of civilization. It's not like living out in out there in Germantown where it takes you 45 minutes to get somewhere. But, and I just want to encourage you to continue doing that. I think that the transition plan that you guys have created, and your predecessors created, makes sense. It's worked very well so far. You've seen tremendous appreciation of homes in this area. You see people building beautiful homes. Schools are at capacity almost right now, cramming more and more and more homes in. We're gonna have to build more schools, and I don't know how we are with levies around here with schools. So, unfortunately. But, and then the traffic issue, it is gonna create traffic. And not to call David out, but yes, there's industry out there. There aren't 400 cars coming per night from this, and that's roughly what you'd be looking at from this new community, about 400 additional cars. So I think that's kind of a straw man comparison, and I think it's fair to call that out. Also, I think that the turn lane issue on 741 and 48 being compared to Ladder 5 Points is another straw man. You're comparing a much wider road to a tiny rural road. And then finally, the lot size in Cypress Ridge. They could be 100 feet, but they're not. So they could be short if something existed, if sewers there, but they're roughly about 180 or so on average. So yeah, so basically almost double what he was claiming it could be. So going from 80-foot lots to 108-foot lots, that's not a transition, that's pretty abrupt. So, and like you mentioned, you'd like to see something a little less dense. I think that that makes sense from a traffic perspective, from not causing extra congestion on the roads and in the schools. And it's good for property values, let's be candid. I don't fault Sherry and Dave for wanting to put more homes in there. I used to work for a builder, so I mean, it's their business to make money, and that's what they should be doing. But I know they appreciate large lots too, because into your home, it's beautiful. I mean, they live on, I don't know how many hundreds of acres. And it's because that is appealing to people. And I think that the people that is appealing to might be in this township would like to see that continue. So I think you have your plan there. I think it's a great plan. I would encourage you to stick with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments? Yes, sir.
Scott Sherritt, 1845 Lionel 5 Points. First, I'd like to present, if you gentlemen, if it's okay to approach you.
Sure.
A petition, new petition, Mr. Thurman. Mr. Gabbard. Mr. Wayne. That petition is a petition that I walked around the neighborhoods, Mr. Suniti and I, between Cypress Ridge and those who are on Lionel 5 Points. For those people who will be directly affected or indirectly affected by this proposition. As you can see, there are a few names on that list, about 20 people. Concerned citizens who really do not want to see the subdivision request, or the request for the zoning be changed. And like Brian, I moved from, I grew up in Waynesville, and then moved to Middletown, and I can't tell you how bad I wanted to get out of that place. And just the dysfunction of that board of the board of Middletown, that and the decisions that they made, and just put themselves in a bind, put themselves behind the times, lackluster decisions throughout the history. And then getting married, I and my wife wanted to move back closer to her family and to mine in Waynesville, and we found Clearcreek Township to be a beautiful mix in between. And just to give you gentlemen a little praise, I'm like Brian, I think you guys have done a great job. You've done a fantastic job. My bus route used to be Line 5 Points Road. I graduated school with went to school with Mr. Clark's son, Steve. So I'm very familiar with this area, the history, 44 years of age now. Only place I've ever lived is in Waynesville and Clearcreek. So, other than Middletown. Just some little demographic statistics. The per capita income, 39,000 in Clearcreek Township. Number of households, 10,607, with the 2.91 persons per household. Excuse me, more recently I found that 3.16 persons per household, which kind of go along with what Richard was saying with regards to how many drivers are going to be in a household, anywhere from 2 to 4. And then we've got the simple fact of the home values. Those people in Cypress Ridge, walking that neighborhood, that's just a fantastic neighborhood. It's really beautiful. The homes are fantastic. I can certainly appreciate the concerns of the child and the gentleman over there, where he moved from, I believe, Sugar Creek, owned a lot of land and moved to this area to be closer to his family, which is why a lot of us have moved to this area. We want to maintain the rural aspect of Clearcreek Township. It's very important for us. It's why a lot of us, most of us, have probably moved to this area or stayed here, like the Snoopy's. So, you know, the median household is value of houses, $232,300 in this area. I'm sure that we wish to maintain or increase this median value of the homes and stay on course with the appeal of the Clearcreek Township by adding more cluster homes. And I believe it was brought up that the trustees, zoning trustees, during their meeting indicated that the Light of 5 Points Road was indeed a great buffer from going from the small lots of Winding Creek to those of Cypress Ridge, where again, all those people worked very hard to purchase those homes. So, you know, I think that's, and again, I don't know if you guys are familiar with where I live. My property, if I might point it out, is right here, kind of a large lot. Mr. Oaks is correct. It's about 6.89 acres on this side. And then I have another 5 acres which my house sits on. And like the Snoodies, I would love to have a buffer zone as well. While I know that, you know, the thought might be, well, you have 6 acres, it's wooded, and, you know, why would you care about a buffer zone? Well, I'll refer back to the simple point that I moved to this area, again, for the rural aspect of the community. I didn't move back here because I enjoyed cluster homes and the likes. And there's the talk of the sewers being one of the reasons why we want to take the lot size down to the 3rd acre. Well, I believe Mr. Palmer indicated that you could have the sewer and still maintain the TR1 zoning. Is that correct?
The TR1 does not give you a reduced lot size for sanitary sewer.
Well, I mean, but you could still have sanitary sewer if you had the 1.5 acre TR1 lot size.
If you desired to put in sanitary sewer in the area and it did not have a zone change, then it would be a minimum lot size of 1.5 acres.
So, you know, and I think there's a lot of talk in here about meeting in the middle. Mr. Wade, I've heard your concerns as well. I mean, 183 homes. That's a lot of cars. It's a lot of lawnmowers. It's a lot of people. It's congestion. And yes, is congestion part of this area? Has it grown up? And absolutely. And, you know, I'll refer back to my initial point that I think you guys have done a fantastic job. I've done some research. You know, Clearcreek Township continues its distinction as one of the safest communities in the state of Ohio. I think that's a direct reflection of Mr. Carroll and our fire department. Outstanding job. You know, we've got 13th safest community to live with in the state of Ohio. The 6th safest community in the state by this category distinction when one looks at mid-sized cities. Clearcreek Township was given the distinction as the safest city or community in the Dayton region in which to live. I think it behooves us to want to maintain that. Therefore, we maintain people to desire to want to move here. This is an upscale community. I think we should try and keep it as such. You know, I found on the website the 2005 master plan, which I think it's very nice that several people have mentioned it, have called it out. In the very first introduction, 2nd paragraph, this plan has been developed with the assistance of steering committee made of township residents, those who are here maybe, who met over a 6-month period to review the data and discuss what the future of the township should be. The makeup of the steering committee reflected a broad cross-section of viewpoints and interests intentionally, so such that the resulting recommendations might be somewhat representative of the township as a whole. You know, and I'll kind of refer a little more in the goals and objectives section. I found it very interesting to note the very first goal, retention of appearance and feel of rural character in Clearcreek Township. Objective, modify, develop regulation and approval process to assure retention of rural character. Well, how do we do that? We will make policies to continue to serve as geographical area of rural relief to sprawl of surrounding metropolitan areas. Seek to encourage residential development types which incorporate preservation of private and public open space, large lot zoning classifications, TR-1. Encourage the retention of large agricultural tracts throughout the township. Large tracts help to distinguish the township from adjoining jurisdictions. Again, Brian mentioned Miami Township. We looked at homes. We investigated the schools, the police department, the fire. All these aspects went into our decision to come to Clearcreek Township. Maintain rural lot size in the township, which contributes to the quality of life of property owners, neighbors, as well as drivers, through an establishment of perpetuation of rural icons. Those icons being homes, surrounded by open space, barns, fence rows, and vegetation. Further goes on to say that identify and retain important scenic views such as hilltops and rolling fields, which Clearcreek Township in itself was named for. There's several goals, I can just highlight: minimize development infrastructure costs to burden to existing township residents. I can only imagine who's going to pay for the road widening, the Blind Hill reconstruction, and like the gentleman over there mentioned, his taxes have raised 26%? 46% since he's come here. Related to natural environment, which is what Clearcreek Township is known for. Sufficient quantities of ground and surface water safe, suitable and adequate for multi-purpose use. Identification for aquifers, and so on and so forth. Air quality. Another goal: establish balance between development and growth management, which will protect the natural environment, allow for maximum opportunity to pursue recreational activities and the enjoyment of benefits of an integrated open space. The list goes on and on. Related to man-made environment, a pattern of land which is capable of serving and meeting the socio-economical and environmental needs of the residents of the township. Yeah.
That's enough. We've read it.
Okay.
I've read them.
Very good.
You don't need to read them to me again.
Sure, I appreciate that.
I was there when they were written.
So,
And I happen to agree with you, and I think probably everybody does in concept, no doubt.
So, in closing, I'd just like to reiterate what Mr. Michael said, You guys have done a great job. Let's keep it that way. There's a reason why people move here, to maintain the rural aspect.
I agree.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you guys have any comments?
I do not at this point.
When we're looking at the transition, we can talk about the frontage or the acreage, and in reality, what we're looking at now with the lot size, we're looking at, to the south, at Cypress Ridge, lots approximately 1 acre, a little bit larger than 1 acre.
Yeah, they're a minimum of 1 acre and a minimum of 100 foot of road frontage
Okay.
for comparison.
So what is our actual average lot size over there?
That I do not know. I did not do a calculation, but they were Homerama sites that were put out, 2000.
David, do you know that?
All the information that the applicant will have. I'm sure
Well,
that
actually, it's kind of changed over the years, because when it first started getting developed, they were acre lots.
Right.
And then the environmental concerns about the size of leach fields became in. So then we naturally had to get through the health department, so the lots got a little larger. But there is that acre minimum, what was established at the time. And I just wanted to say that I believe this is consistent with the land use plan that, it's been quoted, it's been talked about this evening, that this is based upon sanitary sewer being available at R1A is the recommended zoning. It's been verified by the Regional Planning Commission, and this is not cluster housing. Cluster housing is PUD related, where you try to group things together. And this is spreading it out and creating a large lot for everyone involved in the subdivision. So they'll have a nice yard and a nice frontage to their house.
And so the transition from the north is actually 3 lots per acre, and this is going to be about two lots per acre.
2, that's correct. Not even
Right.
2.
Right.
I was just gonna ask Dave if he knew if he remembered off the top of his head what the frontage was in Soraya Farms toward the back where the single homes are back in there, not the doubles or the
65.
65.
Okay. Well, as I have stated, David, I wish that we had a few lots in there, personal opinion. So I'm not particularly comfortable with 183. It is a transition, I'll give you that, from from the winding creeks and down to the larger subdivision to the south. However, I'd like to see a little nicer sized lot in there myself. But I don't, I get that there is a number that works. There are numbers that works. I would encourage you, I don't know what these guys think, but I would encourage you to see if you can get something below that 183 lots that will work for you guys. And I know you don't have this, that's not your final look, that subdivision, I know that. Because you've said that, that's not what your engineers have said, this is it, this is what we have to do. So you might have some room in there. That's what I'd like to see you do and come back to us. Now, that's just my thoughts. The things are going to develop. Property in Clearcreek Township is going to develop, and there's no question about it. We all know that, and we do want to keep it as best as possible. I like the idea of putting some deed restrictions on some of the lots that back up to some of the other properties for sure. And I don't blame the people that have lived here and have bought here that they don't want them there. But the reality is, as I mentioned to the gentleman, you gotta know it's gonna develop in Clearcreek Township. If you don't want it to, you better buy it. And that's not feasible in many cases. I get that also. That's my thoughts. I know it's gonna develop. I'd like to see some kind of compromise down there to get up to a little bit less.
I agree totally, and I think by doing those buffers, that would drive towards that. I sit here and look at a concern, and I'm gonna go ahead and guess what Chief Eggenbrode's thinking is, you've got 183 lots with one way in and one way out, and in order for us to serve that type of community, we have to look at that, from a safety standpoint. But as well, to look at what we just went through, on the other end of town, it doesn't appear that that development, which is between 1 and 2 acres, without sanitary sewer, those lots are gonna be gone within the next 30 to 60 days as that progresses. I don't think that's gonna be an issue. I understand density equals dollars, I get that. But at the same time, looking at both sides of this, I'd like to see that number, Mr. Wade said 120, I'd like to see something between 120 and 140. And maybe you look at straight at the 1 acre size and work backwards from there, but I think you can accomplish those buffers by partially doing that. Yes?
This property only fronts on Lido 5 Point Road, so the town, or the county would not want us to have, and I don't think the township either.
I understand
Would want us to have
that.
2 entrances off of Lido 5 Points. But this plan does allow for, and the county engineers requiring that there's a street stubbed to the east, so that continuity in streets continue to the east. So
Right.
this development will have additional people in and out of it. The other thing is that we did not tie to the Cypress Ridge subdivision because we didn't think that would be something that would be highly popular. Not only that, we actually can't because it's already developed.
Yeah,
and
right, there's no stubs there.
There's no stub streets there.
No, and I looked at both of those things. I'm just looking at it sheerly from what's there now. You look at the plan that you've got across the street with Winding Creek and the time frame that has gone on to add that other exit there, so I'd like to see larger lots.
And I'd rather see you take another look at that rather than us put this into a PUD. Just because of the time it takes to do all of that.
Well, I'm just wondering how we can accomplish that, because the property has to be zoned before we can actually come back to you with a layout. So I don't know exactly how that could look.
That's what I was sitting here trying to figure out also. I mean, you're talking about densities that are more along the lines of an SR1 density, instead of an R1A density, but if they're wanting to have an 80-foot width, that's only in the R1A. So the only way to lock it in
Would be SR1.
is, well, if you want the 80-foot, it's the PUD. If you want it to be of the density of the SR1, and we're truly talking about doing a density of an SR1, but with the lot size configuration of an R1A. And the only way to accomplish that is the PUD, is to truly start pulling ideas from the different classifications. But at the end of the day, if you're only comfortable with the density being of the SR1 classification, it is less intense than what the R1A is. It is greater intensity than the TR1, so you do have the ability to move that down. The applicant may not desire that as their ultimate zoning classification, but that is a movement of the zoning if that's what you desire to do.
Okay, now, say that to me again.
Yeah.
Just let me ask you the question.
Yeah.
Which, in order to move this down and provide the things we've talked about, the deed restrictions and the lots to get to that 120 to 140. So,
It's, the R1 and the SR1 are gonna allow 2 units to the acre, exclusive of all the things I outlined in the beginning, so, you know, the high pressure gas lines, waterways, drainages, and so like. But you're looking at a half-acre lot size with all those things, but you're looking at 100-foot width. So that's gonna probably get you closer to the 120, 140 type of discussion, but it's wider lot than what the applicant's actually requesting. But if we look at the array of zoning classifications, well, the least dense OSR1, the next is TR1, then SR1, R1, and then R1A. So their request is for something here, but in between where they're at and there is the SR1 and the R1 classification. So there's some movement on this side, some movement on that side. It's not 100% what they're requesting. And it's not 100%, I think, what you're wanting to approve. So it, however, is movement of the zoning classification. The other way, which we haven't had great discussion on, is if you're only comfortable with the area that's currently in the sewer area to have a zoning classification, in the area that's outside of the sewer area to have a different zoning classification. If you're truly comfortable with the transition of having the area that's currently outside, even though there's been discussion that they have the ability to bring it there, to have a TR1 or an R1 in the area, or SR1, in the area that's inside the Montgomery County, to have the R1A, you know, that is
It's a possibility.
a possibility. I'm trying not to cloud it, but I think I am. So
yeah,
I'm
but
close to it.
if we do
Clouds are
that,
already
and
there.
split that, then they could still, since they have the ability to expand that area. So even, but if we do that, then that won't work.
Well, to expand the area, if you're saying that TR1 is the ultimate transition between Cypress Ridge and whatever would develop in the sewer area, then they would have a TR1 stand. If you say that that would go to an SR1, they would have half-acre lot sizes if they chose to bring sanitary sewer. If they chose not to, they'd be at an acre minimum lot size. You'd still have something equal to or a stair step.
Could I point something out?
Sure.
Yeah, my name is Steve Lyle. I'm with the Ranky Group. I'm the engineer firm working with Sherry and David. I'm from 959 Congress Park Drive in Centerville. One of the things that we tried to do, and I didn't really point it out, but we tried to have, I mean, this would change around a little bit based on sewer configuration, where we had to put ponds and stuff like that, open space configuration. However, we tried to give something that was somewhat realistic in how many lots we'd be able to get out of this development with the constraints of R1A. We didn't do a checkerboard to see how many lots we could get. We didn't really try and maximize. And if you look at 183 lots over 101 acres, the average lot size here is over half an acre already. It's 0.55 acres, right? I think that's right.
Correct.
Yeah. So really, the overall density is, we're already kind of looking at the next step up. So I just wanted to point that out, that we really felt that this was a legitimate transition between higher density and lower density, and we came in with something we felt was an honest attempt to give a product that would, instead of, you know, PUD, you got maybe 0 lot line stuff and mixes of housing and stuff like that. So anyway, I just wanted to point out that if you look at the average lot size of these, it's already over half an acre when you look at the entirety of it.
Entirely, including your roads and.
No, oh, yeah, correct, correct.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any ideas, Jeff?
Is that pen a magic wand?
Yeah. No, I guess what's going through my mind is that you have a request before you tonight. I'm hearing that you wanted to have some change. I'm not sure how much change can truly occur without a PUD. So we can, with deed restrictions based upon discussion with our law director, that we can put some deed restrictions since they're talking about they're willing to do that. We can identify those areas, and that would be a buffer. But beyond that, I'm not sure how we can actually limit the number of lots, because it's gonna be what the zoning classification will allow. So it may be ebb and flow, you may have some reduction based upon truly what those buffer areas are. But the ideal of truly, if you want it to be 120, that's probably only achievable through a PUD.
I agree.
And the number of lots that we have currently before any zoning change would be,
We're around 58 lots, I think is what mathematically.
57.
57, we're able to.
Well, yes, Steve.
I mean, that, you know, Steve is right, that this is a compromise plan, so if there was a way that we could have a condition that would maximize the number of lots at 180, like the deed restriction on the adjacent properties, that is the compromise on this. That isn't like, because that, like Steve was saying, if we want to checkerboard this thing out, it could have been, it would be much denser at the R1A zone, and that's just not our intention. This is a transition zone, and what we've shown you is a transition lot layout.
and these are going to be high-end homes. Yeah.
I think it's very important to note that whatever decision's made here today, there's a lot of land to the left, or to the right there, on my 5 points, that would set the precedence. So I think we all really need to keep that in mind as well. And I think 57 large homes, very well-built homes by design homes, would be nice to have there. But to have 183 or even 100 homes is just, I think, is too much. And, you know, maintaining the TR1 classification, which was, I think, was implemented in the 2005 master plan, is the right decision to make.
Thank you.
You know, one concept that Ms. Palmer and I are just doing, that Mr. Oaks brought up is, you know, there could be some agreement by Mr. Oaks on the number of lots, and you write that in, and that's what he's agreed to. You know, and you use that as the enforcement mechanism based on what they've said.
So with the regular R1A being 268 and the concept being 183, if that is the number or if there's another number. And this is all new ground. I'm glad we have a law director sitting next to me trying to figure these things out. It kind of starts to be a little contract zoning for me, so that's
the problem. Jeff's absolutely right, and the problem there is that, you know, now we're getting into, this is, you talk about the proverbial finger in the dike. Well, about 3 other, you know, water come out of the dike there on some other issues. So Jeff's right, that the way to do this is PUD. The applicant's made it very clear that's not based on the trustee's concerns and the applicant's concerns. The two are not gonna meet unless it's a PUD, and that's not what the applicant wanted, that's not what the applicant's asking for.
Right. Correct.
And Jeff's right, the contract zoning.
We can't do that.
Starting to get there.
Yeah.
Which I agree with. Again.
Well, after having discussed this for some time, we have an option to approve this, table it, we could table it and discuss it.
Close public hearing first.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm just talking about.
Oh, that's right, you're talking options.
Yeah,
You,
options.
you caught me last time.
We could, or recommend a different zone altogether.
Yeah, if you're gonna table, I wanna know specifically what information needs to be brought back and the timeline expected to get that, so
Oh,
that it would be a decision that.
That's just an option, I'm not sure that's
Yeah,
a good.
but just so that we're clear, from staff perspective.
I got you. Well, we can't do contract zone. It's not legal. So there are some issues with that. There are, I do know the Oaks, and you've all complimented them. The Oaks do wonderful projects in Clearcreek Township, so we've never had a problem with them. They've always done what they said they were gonna do. And even at times, we've had to say, we'd rather you look at doing this, and David's always come through and done those type of things. I just don't love the density here, and I do think of you have to look at it, okay, let's say we got 120 homes that I thought would be good. And that's still a lot more than the 57, it's still two more cars at least per household. So is there a substantial difference between that and the 183 homes? It's a third, almost, but is that worth holding up the development? The point about things going on to the east and developing, certainly whatever happens here is gonna happen that way. I don't think there's any doubt about it, is there?
We take it on a case-by-case basis, but
Actually, there's a sanitary sewer. If you look, the sanitary sewer is a little bit deeper, but it's
Not
not
very far to the
it's
east.
not gonna take you very far to the
Right.
east. So,
That's why that yellow line is what it is.
right, it's, yeah, that's what I was looking at as we were discussing it, actually.
How far does that go?
Not very far. I can get to it. As you're starting to do bumpers on it. You can see where it's at. Basically two
Okay.
ends and then you're done. Which is ironic to the border of our township as well. So, I mean, that one's cut in half. And then this one's put into a basically 60-40, maybe 70-30. As it stands now.
It's the map that I think you guys
There you
are
go.
talking about.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Okay. Any other comments before we go back before we end the public hearing? Okay, is there a motion to close the public hearing and go back to our regular meeting?
So moved.
Second.
excuse me,
Yes.
I think I'm gonna ask for a tabling of the meeting at this time, if I could.
All right.
But close, you still.
We still need to close the public hearing.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, we can table it.
Yeah.
We left Mr. Gabbard,
Yay?
Mr. Wade.
Yeah. Okay, and with that comment from Mr. Oaks, is there a motion to table this?
What time frame are you requesting to bring it back? And what rationale, just so I understand? Are you coming back with a different design, you talking about contemplating PUD, what's?
I'm just gonna try to come back with further information, as far as,
What do you think?
I guess, I just be honest with you, I wanna investigate the legalities of what I'm wanting to do versus what I have the rights to do. That's what I'm gonna do at this time. I'm not a lawyer, so.
No, I got you. Okay, so what do you think, David, a month, 2 months, within 60 days?
You can say for the next meeting and I'll keep you posted.
We have to do 30,
Well,
right?
You gotta
Oh,
have.
okay.
No, it's, if we can advertise it tonight, it's just be, continue
Continue
the
the public
process.
hearing, there you go.
Just
Okay, continue the same
the
ones.
continue the public hearing
I'll
requires.
keep you posted if
Okay.
it changes.
Okay. But we need a motion.
Motion to take, yeah.
We need a motion to table. Jason?
So,
Second?
Mr. Gabbard?
yay?
Mr. Mearsclaw?
Yeah.
Mr. White?
Yeah. Okay, well, thank
Thank
you all
you.
very much.
Thank you.
Any comments? Okay, we do have a full agenda to go, so you're welcome to stick around. Or not. Thank you.
Wondering if I could
Yeah,
go
they-
down the water. I'm going out my
thank
attorney
you.
to see if we could talk about what what's the legality. I don't know what I have to
You gonna get another bottle of water? The administration should get us all water, I think.
Yeah, sounds good. Have him call me. Thank you.
Take a 5-minute recess.